Welcome back to Beater Box Garage. So in this episode, hopefully you've been watching up to this point. The engine's out of the Civic. It's time to work on the engine bay. I want to clean it, degrease it, and kind of remove things that are not needed, like the charcoal canister. I got to remove the wiring harness for the headlights, that way I can get ready to do some rust repair. And so that's this week's project, is engine bay. So hopefully I can get everything done that I want to get done. But first things first, we gotta clean it up. So let's get into it. So I cut out the big section and I use that death wheel. It's a wire wheel. It's made to knock down heavy rust. You really gotta get a hold of that thing or it can do some damage. So I knocked off all this scaly rust and all this metal. I know this looks really bad, but it's actually it's metal. It's not just straight rust. I think what I'm gonna do is get sheet metal, which I picked up today. So I got a couple sheets of sheet metal. I got two different thicknesses because the thickness I thought I was going to go with seems really thick. And so I went with the thinner stuff because I'll be able to form it better. But I think what I'm going to do is put it in from underneath and then hammer it up to kind of fit the curve that this came out as. Another thing I did is I bought some rust converter. I've never used it before. I was reading online. Actually, it works really well, so we'll give that a shot. Because I couldn't get the wire wheel in to like all the crevices to knock everything down, but I definitely want to stop the rust, so I'm going to use that rust converter and put on all the rust that I see. But first, before I do that, I need to wash the engine bay, so I'm going to do that next. Alright, I got a bucket of hot water. Hot water does better with cleaning stuff, plus it's cold as shit in here, so that'll be nice on the hands. So hot water, and here's what I'm using. This is called LA's Totally Awesome, as seen on TV. It's a concentrated degreaser, and you can use Simple Green, Purple Power, all that stuff. This bottle is $1 at like Dollar Tree. It's a degreaser, and it's $1. So I'm gonna use this, because I had it here, and it's cheap, to go ahead and wipe all these surfaces down. So that's where we're at. Alright, I just kind of wiped everything down. I got like all the major grease and grime that was on the frame rails and the shock towers. Not trying to get crazy, just trying to get the loose stuff and the build up off. 10 out of 10 would not recommend doing it this way. I would highly recommend not taking the suspension off and pulling the car outside and using a pressure washer would be way more ideal. I'm too far suspension off the car, and it's also winter time. So pressure washing this outside is not really a good idea right now, but yeah. So now I gotta let this dry, and then we'll work on patching the rust on the other side. Alright, so I took a piece of cardboard, I basically shoved it under, and then I traced out a rough kind of guesstimate. What I'm gonna do is cut this out and leave like an inch, and kind of just keep cutting this down to have a good template that I can trace onto some sheet metal. Alright, so you can see I left about like an inch all the way around, a little bit more on the top. Slide this under. I wanted to overlap the metal, the actual hole. And like construction paper probably would be a little bit better than cardboard. But you can see there, and then what I would like to do is kind of tack weld it in, you know, on one corner, and then basically beat this thing into submission to follow the contours. All right, that's pretty close. So what I'm gonna do is trace this out onto the sheet metal and cut piece of sheet metal out. So really I should cut out extra, because if I'm trying to get this like curved, as I beat the metal from the bottom side out to kind of get that curve, it's going to shrink the metal, it's going to pull it, so the top side is going to come up short. I'm not going to try to get too crazy. I think I'm just going to cut it out how it is, and then if this ends up being, you know, basically just flat across, I'll be cool with that. And then that thicker steel I bought, I think we'll run like one strip down where this is like really thick metal and this was really thin. I think we'll, once I weld this sheet metal in, I'm going to run just a second strip, just extra strength to help, you know, spread it out, I guess, if you will. All right, so it's a new day. Everything's dried as far as, you know, washing the grease and grime out. I'm going to try this product. I've never used it before. It's Rustoleum Rust Reformer. It's supposed to turn rust into like a paintable surface, and the big thing about it is it stops the rust from spreading. So I'm going to go ahead and start hitting the bare metal and anything that's rusty with it. And also, if you notice now, there's a logo on the wall. If you want to see how I did that using a cheap projector, I'll put a link in the description. But let's get into converting this rust. Alright, so I coated the bare metal and any little specks of rust or lots of rust or whatever I saw that was, you know, had some rust on it. So I want to get this treated. And the reason I'm doing that before I weld in the metal is I'm going to overlap the metal a little bit so I have something good to weld on, especially right here. And then once it's welded in, I can, you know, kind of clean up this edge. But I want to make sure I don't weld a panel on top, overlap rust. So I want to get the rust treated before I weld in the new sheet metal. And then once the new sheet metal's welded in, I'm going to undercoat just using, you know, aerosol spray can of rubberized undercoating. Coat the bottom. And what's going on is there's dirt behind this metal. And I think what happened was this wheel liner was missing or damaged, and it was just throwing dirt constantly up. And there's chunks of dirt. As I was brushing it, I didn't notice it, but then I started hitting, you guys see that's a chunk of dirt right there. So I have to get that out. It's just jammed up into the upper side of the frame rail. So yeah, so instructions say, I think it said it has to wait an hour, 4 hours. So if you paint on top of this with oil-based, it's 4 hours, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use Rustoleum oil-based because oil-based, it helps with rust. That's kind of what Rustoleum is known for. Back in the day, if I remember hearing correctly, it was used on like a fishing boat, and they used fish oils, and they noticed stuff didn't rust, and that's how they came to be. But anyways, it's 4 hours if you use oil-based. If you use latex, you have to primer it within 1 hour before top coating. For aerosol paint, you have to wait 3 days. So if you're going to spray paint, you have to wait 3 days after applying this for it to cure. But since we're using oil-based, it's going to be 4 hours, which I might be able to do. I'm going out to dinner here shortly, so maybe after dinner I'll come back and start putting some paint down. I'm not going to paint around where I'm going to weld because it's just the heat from the welding will burn that paint off. But I can start painting some of the other stuff. And I wish I was able to pressure wash the engine bay because it still looks really dirty. A lot of it's just kind of stained. I think if it was pressure washed with some you know, high pressure, it would really knock some of this off, but it's just kind of on there. So like I said, it's not going to be a show bay, so we're just going to play the whole slap a coat of paint on it and make it look nice, even though it's not really the best way to do it. Best way would be strip it all down, but we're going to let this stuff dry and then we'll come back at it, won't we? Yes. Figure I'd show you guys this too. I did the underside of the car. Anywhere I saw like surface rust, and want to get up around where the shock mounts because that was pretty rusty. So once this all cures, under here I'm going to rubberize undercoat it to seal it, where inside it'll be paint. But I got to do this to the other side. Luckily the other side's not as bad, but still got to do the other side. Alright guys, so the rust reformer has sat almost 24 hours now, so it should be good to paint. I want to paint that side of the bay, maybe the core support, or do the core support last since I climb in and out. Just because I want to see how the color goes. I still got to weld in this sheet panel over here. But let's see how this paint looks. This is Rustoleum. This is oil-based. The oil-based is what helps keep things from rusting. That's kind of what Rustoleum is known for. I'm going with gloss smoke gray. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Hopefully it's kind of a darker gray, and we'll see how this comes out. right, the first coat's kind of on there with this like oil base that kind of spreads out pretty good, but you can definitely see like brush strokes and stuff in it. We'll see how it looks after it dries. It's going to take a little while. It is like 59 or 60 degrees in my garage. I do have a little heater going just to try to keep like humidity down, but it is winter, so typically humidity is kind of low. So I just wanted, I guess the whole reason I'm painting this now before I did the subframe and really before I even welded that patch panel in is I just want to keep the motivation going. You know, having something that's a little bit nicer to look at is some motivation. I did do the firewall. It was kind of a pain to try to get behind all the brake lines and stuff, but that's where the brush came in handy. I think it came out pretty well. It's definitely, like I said, this is not a show car. This is going to be a road race car. I just wanted it to look nicer than it did. You can't polish a turd, but you sure can paint it. And so that's all I'm doing here is just painting a turd. But it does look better even with the first coat. So once this dries, I'll probably won't do the second coat until I weld in that panel. I'm going to have to weld it from behind, and then it's probably going to burn some of the paint, so I'll have to wire brush it down and then repaint that corner anyways. So I'll just wait until that's done. But I just wanted it to, you know, kind of motivate me to keep going and not slow down on this project. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and weld in that panel next. Alright, so welded in the sheet metal. It's double welded, so it's welded on the top and on this panel, and then it's not super close to the frame rail, so there's some welds here, and then the rest is welded underneath. Now it's time to clean that up and then paint that and then repaint the rest of it, and we'll be done with the engine bay. So make sure you guys stay ventilated. So it's really cold out, so the garage isn't fully open, but I also have my blower fan moving if you're welding, especially with burning off paint and stuff like that. Alright guys, the engine bay is done. I did do like 2 coats. Maybe I'll do a third because there is a couple spots that are kind of light. But it came out pretty good. It looks better than it did. It's definitely, this is not a show car. Never meant to be a show car. It's just meant to get on the track, and if I wreck it, I wreck it. I won't cry over losing like a show quality bay. Something I picked up, I thought I'd mention, for the wheel wells, I did coat them with this undercoating, and I used this Rustoleum undercoating pro grade. It's supposed to help stop rust, blah, blah, blah. Main reason I did is because I did, you know, treat all that rust that's under there. I wanted to protect it, so that's one reason. The other reason is I got this on Amazon Prime for $4.50 a can. I bought 4 cans because I'm going to do both wheel wells, probably do the rear wheel wells when I get back there. So it was pretty cheap, $4.50. So the engine bay, I guess, is done. I gave it a solid 3 out of 10 on quality, with it being a 1-star before. So yeah, we're there. It's an engine bay. It's definitely not going to win any shows. Nothing I'm embarrassed about, but it's, you know, it is what it is. It's going to hold an engine, get on the track, and that's what it's meant to do. That's going to be it for this video. So the next video will be like tackling the subframe. I still need to find a subframe and suspension. My buddy Jeremy, Tech 15, that I mentioned before, I don't know if it was this video or a previous video, I think he said he has a DC subframe that I can just have. So I need to reach out to him, and if that's true, then go get it. I would like to run the DC subframe, DC suspension, get a sway bar on the front of this thing, and go from there. And then the suspension is going to be used off a car. So what I'm going to have to do is redo the bushings and all that stuff. Do that while the suspension's off the car. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. If you're still watching it, I don't know how long this video is going to be. Probably long, I don't know. But hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Hit the notification bell if you want to see when the next videos come out. The next video for this series will be the subframe. I'm releasing some other videos in between working on this and doing some other stuff. I released the logo on the wall video, and I got a couple other little videos that are going to come out too. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm long-winded, sorry. I'll see you around.